Crooked River, Chapter 27. I wanted to holler that the miserable trapper had stolen the feather from this very cabin, that I had seen it in his hand when we ran him out of the door, that he was telling nothing but lies. But as I stood on the top of the chest and gazed over the heads of all the people crowded into our house, I could see that folks believed every word the trapper was saying. A whole roomful of bonnets and hats nodded. How could I open my mouth to tell them what I had seen? What would my pa do to me if I did? My voice stuck fast in my throat and wouldn't confess a word. "Sit down," Laura said, tugging on my hand. "Sit down, Reb. The judge is starting again. The trapper stole the feather from Indian John," I hissed as I clambered down from the chest. "It wasn't in the snow. I saw it in his hand when you ran him out the door. Somebody's got to tell the judge what the trapper's done." My voice rose above a whisper, and Mrs. Hoadley turned to stare at us from the depths of her old green bonnet. "You hush!" Laura dug her fingers into my arm. "You just sit here and listen and keep quiet. Didn't you see that feather in his hand? You want to face Pa and his wrath?" "Did you ever see it?" I kept on. Laura looked away. "No," she whispered. "Don't ask me again. No." I ducked my head down as stinging tears rose up in my eyes. I didn't want Indian John to be killed because of me, because I didn't breathe a word about the trapper's lies. If Indian John was killed, maybe it would be my debt to pay in heaven. In the front, Peter Kelly stood up to ask Mr. Granger his questions. He gave the trapper a long, silent stare. It was so long that folks started to shift in their seats and whisper, "What's the matter with him?" I started to hope that maybe Peter Kelly knew exactly what I did, that the trapper had stolen the brown feather. Perhaps Indian John had told him the story, or he had guessed it for himself. "You a God-fearing man, Mr. Granger?" Peter Kelly said to the trapper. "Yes, sir, I am." "You always tell the truth when you swear on the Bible?" Yes, sir, I do." "Did you ever visit Indian John while he was a prisoner in this cabin?" I drew in my breath, and Laura gave me a fierce stare, warning me not to say a word. "No, sir," the trapper answered. I shook my head, and Laura pinched my arm. Hard. "Stop that," she warned. Peter Kelly's voice was low and angry. "Are you certain?" He gestured toward the crowd. "I think there are a few people who might have seen you visiting here." Laura gasped, and my face felt suddenly warm. Was Peter Kelly going to call on us? The trapper shifted uncomfortably in his chair and glanced out at the crowd. "Come to think of it," he said, coughing, "it was a while ago, but maybe I did." "So you visited Indian John here?" "Yes, sir, maybe so, but I don't recollect it real clear," he said, coughing harder. "Did you take anything from him?" "No, sir, nothing." "But if you visited here once, wouldn't it have been possible for you to take the feather from him then?" Mr. Kelly's voice rose, "and later say that you had found it near the body of your—" Before the witness could answer, Augustus Root jumped up and hollered in his crackling old voice, "Stop this blasphemy, Your Honor!" "Answer the question," the judge said tiredly. The trapper set his shifting eyes on Mr. Kelly. "I already told you that the feather was in the snow. I ain't never seen it before or since, and I surely didn't take it from no savage's head." Everyone was lying. It was nothing but lies. "No more questions," Mr. Kelly finished, and my heart ached. The judge pushed back his chair and stood up. Mr. Root's side of the case was over, he said, and after the Monday recess, Mr. Kelly would have his turn to call his witnesses. Some in the crowd hooted and laughed at the news. "How many witnesses do you intend to call, Mr. Kelly?" the judge said. "Just 2, Your Honor," he answered. "Only 2." And then the crowd hooted and laughed some more.